Chapter 956, Settle Things. The thief was in despair. Once he had been captured by Sun Zhongyang and the rest, he would definitely be beaten up. The thief could not understand. What did his deeds have to do with them? Lu Shu looked at the thief. He suddenly felt that it was as if the thief had stolen an electric car, but was chased by 4 helicopters. The helicopters even had weapons attached to them that could be fired at any time. But this gave Lu Shu another idea. Sun Zhongyang and the rest did not recognize him, but complained about him because of the gambling in the palace. Earlier, Lu Shu had told them that the commander of the Weiwu army had gone to the palace. Thus, Lu Shu could bring Sun Zhongyang to the palace, to settle things. After Sun Zhongyang and the rest beat up the thief, they turned back and looked at Lu Shu. Lu Yulu, is this the commander of the Weiwu army? Lu Shu was speechless. You are mistaken. He is a thief that tried to steal from me. Sun Zhongyang was speechless as well. They had fought the wrong person. But Sun Zhongyang did not fuss over this. He simply waved. He was a thief. We have to punish him. Although Sun Zhongyang and the rest had been mistaken, they knew that they could not blame Lu Shu for this. After all, Lu Shu had only asked him to stop. He had not said that this person was the commander of the Weiwu army. Thus, Sun Zhongyang, Mo Xiaoya, and the rest did not think much about it. They had simply beaten up a thief. They did not even produce any distress points for Lu Shu. Sun Zhongyang looked at Lu Shu and said, "Are you here to see the slave market?" Lu Shu was dumbfounded. He carefully observed his surroundings. There was an ajar gate that led to a wide courtyard. He could even see a stage made out of wood. A person with the seal of a slave stood on the stage and was watched by many auctioneers off stage. "We want to go in and take a look," said Lu Xiaoyu. Her eyes were bright. Lu Shu looked inside with a worried expression on his face. The male slaves inside are only wearing their underpants. Men's swimwear isn't any better. Lu Xiaoyu rolled her eyes and pulled Lu Shu along as she walked in. She did not think about buying any slaves. She was just curious. These kinds of markets were very rare on Earth. Once they were discovered, they would have to face the brunt of public sentiment. They would not naturally exist in a public market, like in this world. Sun Zhongyang and the rest looked at the slave on the stage. They seemed to have lost interest. The strength or abilities of the slaves were hung around their necks. Some were adept in building houses, while others were rank 5s. But these slaves were not attractive to Sun Zhongyang and the rest at all. To Sun Zhongyang, rank 5 slaves were not a necessity for them. The aristocrats in the palace compared their strong slaves, who were worth 1,000 of such rank 5 slaves. Lu Shu looked. There was a price tag on this rank 5 slave. He was worth 8,000 notes. This price renewed Lu Shu's understanding of monetary value in the Luniverse. He suddenly felt that with 10 million notes in hand, he would definitely be considered as a rich man. Sun Zhongyang furrowed his eyebrows. Who is the manager? An old man hurriedly ran over. What is it, young man? Sun Zhongyang took out a white jade token from his sleeve. Do you understand this? When the manager of the slave market saw this, he was happy. So you are the son of the Sun family. You will definitely not think much of the slaves outside. Follow me inside. Lu Shu understand. At first, he had thought that the slave market was of low quality. So the best slaves were inside the market. The manager led Sun Zhongyang and the rest behind the courtyard. Lu Shu followed them boldly. The manager saw Lu Shu and asked, "You are?" "I came together with them," said Lu Shu calmly. Sun Zhongyang and the rest suddenly turned to look at Lu Shu. Lu Shu felt as if he was a participant on The Voice of China 1, where the judges turned around. Sun Zhongyang smiled. Yes, he's with us. When the people beside Sun Zhongyang saw this, they felt that Lu Shu was very thick-skinned. He did not even deem himself as an outsider. Lu Shu was too lazy to care about them. He would be able to enter the inside if he wanted to, as long as he used his name as the commander of the Wei Wu army. The commander of an army definitely had the right to enter. He followed Sun Zhongyang and the rest in. On one hand, it saved him some trouble. On the other hand, he was also afraid of fighting Sun Zhongyang and the rest. The inner court was much more refined than the outside. While the slaves outside all stood on the stage in a pathetic manner, as if they were beasts being watched, there were elegant pavilions inside. It was as if a door separated two very different worlds. The manager laughed and introduced the slaves to Sun Zhongyang. "What kind of slaves do you want to purchase this time? We have some new arrivals that are not bad." Sun Zhongyang said casually, "Take all of them out. I want to have a look." The manager looked at the assistant beside him. The assistant ran to the side. When Sun Zhongyang and the rest had sat down, servants quickly served them sweets and tea. Sun Zhongyang seemed as if he did not think much of these sweets. He casually took one. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. "These are not bad." Mo Xiaoya also took one piece. After she ate it, she sighed. "I didn't expect that you would have sweets with this texture." Lu Shu took one piece as well. Then, he pushed the plate towards Lu Xiaoyu. He was very curious towards the entire universe, including their sweets. Lu Xiaoyu took one piece. Lu Shu left one half uneaten and put it back on the tray. He said to Lu Xiaoyu, "Just try some, but don't take too much. It's not that tasty." The manager was a wise person. He could see that Lu Shu was not familiar with Sun Zhongyang and the rest. He definitely did not have a grand background like that of Sun Zhongyang. Thus, when Lu Shu said that the sweets were not tasty, he was unhappy. "Who gave you the right to be so particular? Their sweets were even better than those produced in the West capital." Although Mo Xiaoya and the rest did not say anything, they felt that this young man was far too amazing. They felt that he had never eaten good food. How could he say that these delicious sweets were not tasty? But to Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu, who had eaten delicacies on earth, eating these kinds of sweets was like eating old-fashioned milk cakes from the 90s. It was hard to swallow. At that moment, the slave market assistant brought 7 slaves over. The manager hurriedly said, "These are our best slaves. They have experienced countless battles. They are all rank 2 and above. Their requirement is that the buyer must have techniques that are rank 1 and above." Lu Shu understood. These people had sold themselves as slaves in order to obtain techniques. Chapter 957, Plant a Spy. To be honest, for Lu Shu, there were no benefits that were worth selling his body for, even the master realm. Sun Zhongyang waved his hand and rejected. "I dislike those who sell their body for some benefit the most. Are there any other slaves?" The manager laughed in disdain. "I will bring a few other slaves. But you must understand that these are the best slaves. They typically have their own reasons for coming to the market. Roamers have no right to enter." "I mean, do you have any?" Sun Zhongyang high stated. "Good-looking slaves who are of excellent quality? It would be best if they are well educated. Even better if they understand the poems of the king." When Sun Zhongyang said this, the manager understood. Suddenly, Lu Shu was speechless. So the palace compared these kinds of slaves, there was no difference with that on earth, where concubines were compared. Lu Shu felt that there was nothing attractive about these slaves. "Wait, why did you bring male slaves?" This time, the manager brought more than 10 slaves. Half of them were male. Lu Shu suddenly realized that the palace geniuses besides Sun Zhongyang were suddenly very excited. He really could not understand this world. Lu Xiaoyu glanced at Lu Shu. "How about them? Lu Shu said with a sense of justice, I dislike those who sell their body for some benefit the most. The manager glanced at him and said to Sun Zhongyang, they are talented in the reading of the king's poems. Do you want them to perform for you? Sun Zhongyang said excitedly, let me listen to one or two poems of the king. Lu Shu thought. Were you really a young man who was interested in literature and art? You do not seem like one at all. But at that moment, a beautiful female slave wearing a green dress said in a dignified manner, I heard you say that you dislike those who sell their bodies for some benefit the most. But you might have misunderstood. In this courtyard, not only do masters choose slaves, slaves also choose their masters. It is easy for you to make us memorize the poems of the king. But do you know how we feel wrong to submit ourselves to you? Lu Shu was dumbfounded. The slaves here dared to speak in such a manner? Were there still many things about this world that he did not know? Or had Zhang Weiyu been right? He had said that the slaves who had knowledge and could become teachers were abused by their slave owners, but were also respected by their owners. Lu Shu realized that Sun Zhongyang and the rest did not slap this lady in a rage. On the contrary, they seemed to be deep in thought. Lu Xiaoyu said in a low and cold tone, it's just a sales strategy. Suddenly, Sun Zhongyang said in a clear voice, how about this? Let's play a game. We will each say a line of the king's poems. This way, we can clearly see how much everyone knows. I'll go first. You live where the Yangtze begins one. The person him smiled and continued. I live where the Yangtze ends. I long for you day after day, yet we cannot meet, said someone else. To Lu Shu's shock, he realized that it was now his turn. What was the next line? Everyone looked at Lu Shu. Lu Shu paused for 2 seconds. We build a new village together? From Sun Zhongyang's distress, plus 666. From Mo Xiaoya's distress, plus 666. From Sun Zhongyang felt sick. Others share the water from the Yangtze River, but you built a new village? What in the world was that? The originally civilized atmosphere had suddenly been destroyed. Lu Shu also realized that everyone's expressions had darkened. He coughed twice. Ahem. Let's go back to the trade caravan. Have fun, all of you. There was really no meaning to this slave market. Thus, Lu Shu decided that he would no longer stay here. He could not play along with what these refined men liked to play. But at that moment, the lady in a green dress said, if you are willing, I am willing to become your slave. Lu Shu pointed to himself. Me? The lady in a green dress nodded her head. That's right. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. He asked, did you eat too much for lunch? From Su Mujuan's distress, plus 199. Sun Zhongyang and the rest were dumbfounded as well. Just now, she seemed as if she looked down on Lu Shu. But now, she asked him whether he was willing to take her as his slave out of her own initiative. Were you serious? To Lu Shu and the rest, based on Lu Shu's build a new village together, it was not an understatement to call him a country bumpkin. Sun Zhongyang could not understand. Lady, we have various handsome young men here. Some of us are rich, some of us have strength, and some of us have power. Before he could finish speaking, Su Mujuan suddenly said, I picked the most good-looking one. From Sun Zhongyang's distress. Lu Xiaoyu suddenly pondered. This world was very strange. On Earth, although Lu Shu had fine features, he could not be considered as good-looking. Only fools like Coral would call Lu Shu as such. Thus, Lu Xiaoyu thought about it. Was there something wrong with the appreciation of beauty in this world? Or was there something wrong with Lu Shu's identity? Why was everyone forced to think that Lu Shu was good-looking? If there was actually something wrong with Lu Shu's identity, where would they find the answer to their question? Lu Xiaoyu asked Lu Shu in a small voice, do you think that there's something strange here? Lu Shu asked curiously. What's strange? Lu Xiaoyu thought about it and said, why does everyone here think that you're good-looking? Lu Shu paused for 2 seconds. Because I really am? From Lu Xiaoyu's distress, plus 666. Lu Xiaoyu coldly looked at Lu Shu. You can really boast. My train of thought is all over the place now. Lu Shu looked at Su Mujuan and said in an earnest tone, Lady, I have no money to buy you. I still have other uses for my money. No money? Sun Zhongyang and the rest looked at Lu Shu. Even Mo Zioea was surprised. All the buyers they had seen liked to boast in hopes of getting their attention. But this young man had confessed his financial state. He even made others feel more comfortable and ensured that they had a peace of mind. Su Mujuan said calmly, I have some money. If you are willing, my money will be yours. At that moment, Lu Shu was touched. Sun Zhongyang and the rest were dumbfounded. Was she selling herself as a slave, or was she buying a master? They could not understand this situation. Lu Xiaoyu was dumbfounded as well. At first, she had thought that Su Mujuan had acted in a prideful manner as a means to get sales. But now, it seemed as if this was not the case. She said to Lu Shu, she definitely has some plans. Lu Shu was very calm. That's right. I've seen it as well. She is targeting my looks. At that moment, Wen Zaifu was shouting abuses in the imperial palace. No way. Why is it so difficult to plant someone beside him? He must be crazy. Chapter 958, There's nothing good about pretty boys. There was no hate that existed for no rhyme or reason. It was the same for love and distress points. Lu Shu had still thought that Su Mujuan was not targeting his looks. But suddenly, he saw plus 666 distress points from Wen Zaifu. He understood what was happening. Had Su Mujuan been sent by Wen Zaifu? But why did Wen Zaifu want to plant someone beside him? Why did a Grand Lord of Heaven want to fight the small commander of the Weiwu army? There was something very strange about this. Could it be that although Wen Zaifu said he believed that Lu Shu was not deeply involved with Jiang Weiyu and the rest, Wen Zaifu still doubted him? Lu Shu was in a dilemma. Did he want Su Mujuan's money or not? No. Should he take Su Mujuan as his slave or not? Lu Shu felt that rather than insincerely accepting her as his slave, it would be better to simply reject her. After all, under normal circumstances, Lu Shu would not know who had sent Su Mujuan here. Wen Zaifu would not be shamed into anger either. Lu Shu said, Ms. Mujuan, I really cannot support a slave. Don't sell yourself to me. Su Mujuan was dumbfounded. She did not know how to react. It was as if she had not expected Lu Shu's reply. When Mo Shoyan and the rest heard what Lu Shu had said, they were shocked. Su Mujuan was very beautiful. The palace geniuses were excited not because of the male slaves. It was because they did not expect to see such a good-looking slave here. If not, why would Sun Zhongyang accept Su Mujuan's suggestion and prove that he knew poems as well? The more outstanding they were, the harder they were to obtain. This was rare for Sun Zhongyang and the rest. Simply speaking, it was a sin. Wen Zaifu's move left no room for criticism. Su Mujuan was a virgin that he had carefully selected among the spies. She was an all-rounder. But Wen Zaifu simply could not understand why Lu Shu had rejected her. Mo Shoya's view of Lu Shu changed. Typically, when they listened to scholars tell stories, or invited theatrical troupes to their houses, they liked stories about remarkable men. Mo Shoya particularly liked those who had moral integrity. The men in the palace constantly compared their slaves. Furthermore, all their slaves were females. It was not difficult to guess how experienced these men were with their slaves. She was disgusted just thinking about it. Thus, Mo Shoya looked at Lu Shu's face. Suddenly, she grew crazy. But at that moment, Lu Shu looked at Su Mujuan's teary expression and could not bear it. He paused for 2 seconds before saying, "If you are okay with this, you can give me your money. That way, I can carry your money with me. It will feel like you are by my side. When I see the money, I will be able to see your face." Mo Xiaoya suddenly felt as if there was a clean and clear mirror in her heart that had broken. It had broken into many pieces. From Su Mujuan's distress, plus 666. From Mo Xiaoya's. Sun Zhongyang looked at Lu Shu and suddenly felt annoyed. A female slave that he could not even obtain was giving herself to Lu Shu for free, but he rejected her. He only wanted money, and not her. Su Mujuan said, "Fine. That makes sense. Please take my money." As she spoke, she took out a wad of notes from her sleeve and passed it to Lu Shu. She said with great injustice, "This is the money that I have been saving up my entire life." If Lu Shu did not know that when Zaifu had sent her here, he would not have been willing to take her money. He had also earned his money with great difficulty. Earning money to survive was not easy. But now, it was different. He could only sigh that when Zaifu was generous in his spending. Would Wen Zaifu send more people in the future? When he thought about this, he started to look forward to it. Sun Zhongyang and the rest stared at Lu Shu as he turned and walked away after receiving the money. If he did not leave, what else would he do? Wait for Su Mujuan to regret her decision? Young lady. Mo Xiaoya patted Su Mujuan's shoulder. "There's nothing good about handsome men. Take this money. The money that you gave away will serve as a lesson." As she spoke, Mo Xiaoya shoved a wad of notes to Su Mujuan and left. Mo Xiaoya did not have a favorable impression of Lu Shu. Lu Shu had betrayed others, and now, they had seen Lu Shu's greedy character. Mo Xiaoya had formed a very negative impression of him. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu walked in front. Lu Shu passed the notes to Xiaoyu. Someone had probably sent a spy over. We have to be more careful in the future. Lu Shu thought about it. How could they be sure that they would enter the slave market and be able to enter the inner courtyard? Unless they had grasped the entire situation at the entrance of the slave market, causing him to bump into Sun Zhongyang and the rest by coincidence at the entrance. For example, that thief? They had probably created an opportunity for him. As for whether Lu Shu would catch on, it would be up to fate. If this was indeed the case, Lu Shu could not help but applaud how exquisite this plan was. They had planned one half and left the other half up to fate. This was the most natural plan. If they were not successful this time, there might be a next time. They had time to wait for the opportunity to succeed. They only needed to succeed once to be safe. When they returned to the caravan, Lu Shu realized that Sun Zhongyang and the rest did not even make eye contact with him. It was as if they looked down on him. Lu Shu was happy. They would definitely not be able to understand his actions if they were not aware of the situation. But how could he explain this to Sun Zhongyang? Was there a need for Lu Shu to explain this to them? No. There were many visitors in this world. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu had spent many years relying on each other. They had learned how to ignore the opinions of others a long time ago. Now, as long as Lu Xiaoyu did not look at him with disdain, he would not care. At night, Lu Xiaoyu had prepared many tidbits for Lu Shu in the cart. They seemed like a reward for him. Lu Xiaoyu pushed all the tidbits towards Lu Shu. "Here, eat these." The next day, before they set off, Lu Shu suddenly felt that there was something wrong with the trade caravan. Sun Zhongyang and the rest were all looking at him coldly. Lu Shu looked at the clothes that he was wearing. He was not wearing the wrong thing. Suddenly, Su Mujuan appeared. "I will follow you to the palace." Lu Shu was shocked. What was happening? He thought that a new spy would come with more money. Why was it still Su Mujuan? No wonder Sun Zhongyang and the rest were full of hate. They were jealous of him. Mo Xiaoya entered the carriage. Her voice could be heard over the galloping noises. There is nothing good about pretty boys. There are also many idiots in this world. She regretted giving Su Mujuan money. If not, Su Mujuan would not have the money to become a passenger in this trade caravan. A young man beside Sun Zhongyang sighed with emotion. Is this true love? She is willing to accompany him along the long journey to the palace. How touching. Sun Zhongyang was utterly disgusted. Shut your mouth. Lu Shu suddenly realized that after Su Mujuan had appeared, Sun Zhongyang and Mo Xiaoya provided him with an endless supply of distress points. The trade caravan set off. Chapter 959, Sneak Attack. The ride on the carriage was slightly bumpy, but Lu Shu was able to continue the journey in a carefree manner. Sun Zhongyang had a headache from seeing the words, "When I see the money, I will be able to see your face," especially when he saw Su Mujuan advance towards Lu Shu. He did not understand why a beautiful and talented lady who had a lovely voice was entranced by a pretty boy. Amongst the 12 people who traveled with Sun Zhongyang, there were 5 women and 7 men. They had grown up together, attended lessons together, and was still in touch after they entered university. Although Mo Xiaoya and the rest were also extremely beautiful, he did not bear to do anything to them as they were too close. Perhaps, one day, a marriage would be arranged between them. However, even after marriage, they would probably be extremely nice to each other as, after all, they were concerned about mutual benefits. Therefore, even if they married each other, Sun Zhongyang would not feel as carefree as having a female slave. That brat is too greedy, exclaimed Sun Zhongyang. He had told Mo Xiaoya earlier on that one should not use the excuse of morals to tie someone down. However, he could not endure it any further. His own words had slapped him in the face. Sun Zhongyang was slightly angry. If you are not greedy, why would you betray the commander of the Weiwu army? Someone sneered. Should I kill him sometime later? At this moment, Sun Zhongyang shook his head. He did not lie to us or betray us. Why do you want to kill him? Don't be too evil. For some reason, when Sun Zhongyang said this, he felt that he over-exaggerated, but he could not figure out what was wrong. Along the way, the trade caravan did not make any more stops. The boss of the trade caravan completely ignored the city where they would usually stop by and make a transfer of their goods. The trade caravan was left with the boss and his slaves, Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu, as well as the aristocrats of the palace. Lu Shu made a joke about how the boss decided not to do any business. Even if he did not want to waste his time on the transfer of goods, he could have picked someone up along the way. In the end, the boss shook his head. What do you know, the sons and daughters of the aristocrats are spoilt. How would they know about the evilness of the world? It is extremely chaotic outside. The aristocrats held grudges against each other since thousands of years ago. If they were angry, they would probably not allow the children to return. How can I bear such a consequence? Even if we don't talk about grudges between the aristocrats, do you think? At this moment, a buzz was heard from afar. Lu Shu looked over and saw a black dot flying from a distance away. The boss of the trade caravan could not even react in time. Thankfully, Lu Shu had a fast reaction and pulled him to the side. After that, the boss of the trade caravan saw the thick and heavy arrow brush past his cheeks. The wind was so sharp that it hurt his cheeks. At this moment, he saw Sun Zhongyang suddenly fly out from the carriage. The carriage turned into wooden shreds upon Sun Zhongyang's impact. In a blink of an eye, Sun Zhongyang had reached where Lu Shu and the boss of the trade caravan were. He stretched out his hand and crossed his index finger and middle finger, capturing the back of the arrow between his index fingers. The arrow spun and flew right up into the sky as though it had eyes. Then, it landed in Lu Shu's hands. Lu Shu passed the arrow to Sun Zhongyang and Sun Zhongyang turned to ask the boss of the trade caravan, do you recognize this arrow? The arrow did not seem like one which anyone could use. The tip of the arrow was as thick as a baby's fist and it was made from gold. The boss of the trade caravan shook his head. Although this object is not commonly seen, many of the homeless people and slaves are good at it. I cannot confirm who is using this. By right, when springing sneak attacks, one should not alarm one's opponents and it would be best to kill him in one shot. However, the homeless people were afraid to die and always liked to check out the situation of the team. If they find that it was hard to achieve their goals, they will retreat. They only do things which they are confident in. Now that you have attacked, they probably fled to a faraway place and will not appear again in a few years' time. Sun Zhongyang frowned. There are no rank 1 experts amongst them? Please do not chase after them. Another situation is, the boss of the trade caravan was hesitant as he looked at Sun Zhongyang. Speak, Sun Zhongyang said calmly. They may trick the disciples of the palace using this method. As the disciples of the palace are usually very proud and ambitious, some of them may fall for their trick and give chase, to be eventually surrounded and killed. Some of the homeless people are experts, said the boss of the trade caravan cautiously. Basically, the homeless people looked down on the disciples of the palace as they felt that the disciples were too rash and overconfident. However, that was the reality. The homeless people often succeeded and concealed the identity after their success. They would only emerge after all the clues related to them disappeared. The history of the slaves could be traced back to a long time ago when the old king of gods was still involved in battles. The threats left behind in those bloody fights included some of the slaves who were rather fierce and brutal. Upon hearing that there were fierce slaves in the Luniverse, Lu Shu felt as though they acted like soldier recruits. How were they so daring to attack Sun Zhongyang? I wonder who they are targeting. Sun Zhongyang was confused. There were 12 of them here and each of them could have possibly messed with these slaves. It was a fact that the aristocrats managed to rise after killing many lives. However, Sun Zhongyang and the rest was daring enough to appear. If they were ordinary sons of the aristocrats, they would be silly if they did not bring any servants. However, Sun Zhongyang was not silly and had expected the situation as illustrated by the boss of the trade caravan long ago. Meanwhile, the 4 rank 1 individuals and 8 rank 2 individuals had extremely terrifying skills too. They mentioned this matter before they came out and Sun Zhongyang wanted them to kill their enemies one after another. That was how confident Sun Zhongyang and the rest were. However, upon recalling about the scene earlier on, the boss of the trade caravan examined Lu Shu casually. As a rank 2, he did not manage to react as the arrow was too fast. It was too late for them to dodge when they heard the sound. The arrow was faster than sound. A lot faster. When they heard the loud sound, the arrow had already reached the front of his face. However, although the boss of the trade caravan did not react in time, Lu Shu managed to react. Initially, the boss of the trade caravan thought that Lu Shu was merely an insignificant practitioner and Sun Zhongyang and the rest joked that Lu Shu would be a useless guy even if he tried very hard to train. Lu Shu realized that the bosses of the trade caravan were secretly examining him and smiled. "I will not pay for you to bring us along." The boss of the trade caravan felt speechless. Why was he still concerned about money at this point in time? Chapter 960, None of My Business. While discussing about the free-of-charge service with the boss of the trade caravan, Lu Shu observed the expressions on Sun Zhongyang and the rest's faces. Then, Lu Shu realized that Sun Zhongyang and the rest were extremely excited and acted as though the sneak attack was nothing serious. Eventually, the boss of the trade caravan did not argue with Lu Shu. Not only did he agree with Lu Shu's request, but he also promised that if he met Lu Shu in the future, Lu Shu would be able to follow the trade caravan for free. Although the boss of the trade caravan was shrewd, he knew that Lu Shu saved his life. If he had died earlier on, the Sun family would probably take revenge. However, when one died, what was the point of taking revenge? However, his stand was still very clear. The trade caravan found a location to settle down on that day, and the boss of the trade caravan told Sun Zhongyang and the rest about what had happened. For example, the terrifying arrow and his analysis of the slaves, as well as the surprise which Lu Shu gave him. Thinking about it, I did not notice the arrow, but Lu Yulu sensed it long before me. However, I did not have the time to react and missed out some details, said the boss of the trade caravan as he recalled what had happened. You mean, he already noticed the arrow before it arrived, but you only realized after hearing the roars from a distance away, said Sun Zhongyang as he sat beside the fire and smiled, so he is actually an expert? That's right. The boss of the trade caravan nodded. Also, I suspect that he discovered the arrow very early but pretended to realize it only when the arrow was about to hit me, before saving me. You mean he purposely did it so that you have to owe him a favor for saving your life? Mo Xiaoya thought. Why does he want to do this? What if he did not manage to save you? The boss of the trade caravan thought about it for a long time before replying. I think he did it so that he did not have to pay for the fees to travel to the palace. Sun Zhongyang took a deep breath. I think that is highly possible. By right, such major incidents which involves attacks were rarely associated with monetary issues. From Sun Zhongyang's point of view, the money that Lu Shu had to pay for heading to the palace was extremely insignificant. However, for some reason, when this incident involved Lu Shu, they thought that Lu Shu did that on purpose. Make the boss of the trade caravan owe him a favor so that he could head to the palace without paying. Everyone's personality was different and the way they see things were different. However, their perception towards Lu Shu was shockingly identical. Do you think he is seriously doing this for that small sum of money? Sun Zhongyang could not believe it. Mo Xiaoya completely detested Lu Shu. She sneered after hearing what Sun Zhongyang said. He can do anything for money. If he is willing to take Su Mujuan's life savings, he can do anything. I thought he would betray the commander of the Weiwu army because of money. Now I feel that meeting him is the most unlucky thing that has ever happened to the commander of the Weiwu army. Do you think he is intentionally assigned by our enemy to infiltrate the army? Someone said. This is unlikely. Sun Zhongyang shook his head. To be honest, it is surprising for him to stay in the trade caravan. If he was really a spy, he would not try to stand out. Was Lu Shu trying to stand out? No, he was not. However, Sun Zhongyang and the rest could not ignore Lu Shu's presence. Do you guys think that he might be the commander of the Weiwu army? Someone asked curiously. I don't think so. There are 4 rank 1s in the Weiwu army and the commander of the Weiwu army is one of them. If not, why would others obey him? Moreover, Lu Yulu did not give off any vibes of an army at all. I think we should still be wary of him, said Mo Xiaoya softly before asking the boss of the trade caravan. What do you think about his skills? I think he is at the peak of rank 2, said the boss of the trade caravan after thinking about it. He doesn't seem like rank 1 but acted more casual than an ordinary rank 2. You didn't notice his expression, but I did. He was too calm. An ordinary person would not be so calm. It felt as though sneak attacks and battles were like everyday things to him. That was what the boss of the trade caravan felt. He had led the trade caravan for many years and had encounters with the bandits, regular army, and experienced chaotic situations. Although he always managed to resolve crises, the boss of the trade caravan did not dare to say that he could be so composed while facing dangers and sneak attacks. However, the composure that Lu Shu exuded felt as though he had control over life and death in his hand and nobody else could touch it. Mo Xiaoya sneered. I knew that there was something wrong with him. I think we should monitor him closely. If he can betray the commander of the Weiwu army, he can betray us in the face of money. Should we kick him out to prevent him from becoming a threat amongst the trade caravan? Xiaoya is right, we should take preventive precautions. However, are we too merciless if we chase him away? Someone was confused. At this moment, horse galloping sounds were heard in the night, accompanied by the sounds made by the carriage rubbing against the ground. Either someone arrived or someone was about to take their leave from the trade caravan. Sun Zhongyang was stunned for a moment before he brought a group of people over. Then, his face turned black. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu were planning to leave in the night. He was still wondering if it was merciless to chase people away, but Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu had already wanted to leave. Sun Zhongyang was intelligent. Therefore, he instantly understood why Lu Shu wanted to leave. He was worried that he would become the victim of the sneak attack. They were only worried about their team's safety with Lu Shu, but Lu Shu was worried about the entire team. From Sun Zhongyang's distress points, plus 666. From Sun Zhongyang's face turned black. Where are you guys going? Lu Shu said calmly, I think it is unsafe to follow you guys. We shall meet at the palace. I will look for the commander of the Weiwu army for you. Mo Xiaoya was very frustrated. You want to leave when everyone is in danger? How does it concern me? Lu Shu felt indignant. To him, they were a group of people who found fault with him even when nothing happened. He was good enough to not wipe all of them out at once in the middle of the night. Mo Xiaoya was stunned for a while. You leave your partners in the lurch. Even if you are able to survive, will you still have any friends? Why are you so concerned about this? Lu Shu felt even stranger. He sighed as he saw Mo Xiaoya fall silent. In life, by using "why does it concern me" and "why does it concern you," one could save a lot of troubles.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens.